Infections from intravenous drug use. What is intravenous drug use? Intravenous injections rapidly admit drugs into the body by way of inserting a needle into a peripheral vein in the arm or leg. Otherwise known as shooting, slamming, banging, blasting, or mainlining. Intravenous injections usually result in a much more rapid availability of the drug into the system. Intravenous injection also leads to a greater risk of dependency and infection from dirty needles or usage of toxic drugs. Why does for drug use produce infection? When it comes to for drug use and infection, there are many factors to consider. Bacterial infections are caused when germs on the skin, or within a contaminated needle, are pushed through the skin and deep into the body. Injecting a substance into the skin bypasses the usual barriers of entry that our body uses to protect us. If infection-causing bacteria reach blood vessels, it can result in infection of the widespread deep tissue, veins, or vascular tissue. Those who inject subcutaneously or engage in skin popping are at higher risk of developing infected blisters, subcutaneous abscesses, or pustules when users share needles or other injecting paraphernalia. Blood-borne infections like HIV and hepatitis C are common. Those who live in poor conditions and engage in intravenous drug use usually have a lack of hygiene and poor nutritional habits that contribute to the risk of getting other infections from shooting up, such as staph is the deadliest skin infection. With over 30 varieties, staph infection symptoms can range from mild to life-endangering. Commonly injected drugs. The most commonly injected drugs are heroin, amphetamines, barbiturates, buprenorphine, benzodiazepine, cocaine, and methamphetamine. Cause of bacterial infections: skin and soft tissue infections. Bacterial infections often arise from injecting a needle into fatty tissue beneath the surface layer of skin. Veins that leak during injection along with toxic drug usage can cause infection as well as tissue morbidity. The presence of bacteria on the skin surface while injecting can also result in bacterial infection. Types of bacterial infections: abscess, botulism, cellulitis, heart valve infection, HIV infection, AIDS, liver disease, tetanus. The spread of the HIV virus across China, Central Asia, and Eastern Europe closely corresponds with the rapid rise in intravenous or for drug use. Signs of infection. If an infection is present in bodily areas that are frequently injected, the injection site will become tender, warm to the touch, and red. A frequent pattern of injection causes infections that lead to discoloration, scarring. A person with swollen lymph glands that has a high fever and heavy sweats may need immediate medical attention. These needle infection symptoms are signs of an overdose or a toxic reaction to a substance. For example, black tar heroin is named after its tar-like consistency. It contains many additives and contaminants that can cause local infection, blood clots, and damage to the following organs: lungs, kidneys, brain, liver.
Drug overdose deaths remain high. 75% of the nearly 92,000 drug overdose deaths in 2020 involved an opioid. More than 932,000 people have died since 1999 from a drug overdose. 1 in 2020, 91,799 drug overdose deaths occurred in the United States. The age-adjusted rate of overdose deaths increased by 31% from 2019, 21.6 per 100,000, to 2020, 28.3 per 100,000. Opioids, mainly synthetic opioids, other than methadone, are currently the main driver of drug overdose deaths. 82.3% of opioid-involved overdose deaths involved synthetic opioids. Opioids were involved in 68,630 overdose deaths in 2020, 74.8% of all drug overdose deaths. Drug overdose deaths involving psychostimulants such as methamphetamine are increasing with and without synthetic opioid involvement. In 2020, more than 56,000 deaths involving synthetic opioids, other than methadone, occurred in the United States, which is more deaths than from any other type of opioid. Synthetic opioid-involved death rates increased by over 56% from 2019 to 2020 and accounted for over 82% of all opioid-involved deaths in 2020. The rate of overdose deaths involving synthetic opioids was more than 18 times higher in 2020 than in 2013. Previous reports have indicated that increases in synthetic opioid-involved deaths have been associated with the number of drug submissions obtained by law enforcement that test positive for fentanyl but not with fentanyl prescribing rates. These reports indicate that increases in synthetic opioid-involved deaths are being driven by increases in fentanyl-involved overdose deaths, and the source of the fentanyl is more likely to be illicitly manufactured than pharmaceutical. There are also fentanyl analogs, such as acylfentanyl, furanylfentanyl, and carfentanil, which are similar in chemical structure to fentanyl but not routinely detected because specialized toxicology testing is required. Recent surveillance has also identified other emerging synthetic opioids, like U47700.5. Estimates of the potency of fentanyl analogs vary from less potent than fentanyl to much more potent than fentanyl. But there is some uncertainty because potency of illicitly manufactured fentanyl analogs has not been evaluated in humans. Carfentanil, the most potent fentanyl analog detected in the U.S., is estimated to be 10,000 times more potent than morphine.